Let's have a fun with variables in JavaScript. So in Apex, you have seen that if you want to declare a variable, you have to specify a data type, whether this variable is going to have a number or a integer or a float or a double or a string or any other collection. We have to specify a data type. So if you don't know much about Apex, that's fine. But in JavaScript, this is not the case, since JavaScript is a weakly typed or a loosely typed language. Here we just use one common keyword to declare a variable, and then we can assign whichever data type we want. In a same variable, we can assign string or integer or float or any of the collections. Anything can be assigned to the same variable. So to declare a variable in JavaScript, we use a keyword let. I'll call it my let variable. And there is another way to declare variable in JavaScript using var keyword. There is a difference between let and var, we'll talk about shortly. And there is another way to declare constants in JavaScript. So to declare a constant, we use this keyword name, constant. I would give a name like my constant. This is okay. So these can be modified later in the code. This can also be modified later in the code, but this is a constant, and when we are declaring a constant, we have to assign a value to the constant, and this cannot be modified. This is a constant, so whatever the value we assigned during the declaration of this constant will remain same. It cannot be modified. So if if I try to do it that like this, my const some different value, this shall throw an error because this is not permitted. I would mention incorrect syntax. Const cannot be modified. So these are the three ways we declare variables and constant in JavaScript. And if we want to declare within the class, then we cannot do it like let keyword. We cannot use var keyword also, and same goes for the const. This is not a legitimate syntax. So if I try to declare it let using let, this is class let. This is an incorrect syntax. You can see the red line right away. So if I try to do the same with the var, this is again an incorrect syntax, and same goes for the const also. So let me comment it out. I would mention it here so that you don't have to make notes explicitly. So you can just open this file and you can see all the notes within this file also. So I will mention here that above is not a valid way to declare variables. So if we want to declare a variable in class, what we need to do is just give name of the variable. I would give my class variable. This is the class variable. So there is no need to use let var const in when we want to declare a variable within the class. So let's understand these let and var in more detail. For that, I'll declare one method, my method. I will give a name, my method. So var and let seems similar because their job is similar. It cannot we can declare the variables using either this keyword or this keyword. I mean using let keyword or var keyword. But there is a significant difference between let and var. So one thing is we can declare variables using let var const outside the class, and we can use the same within a method which is declared in the class. Declaring a variable using let var and const is not at all possible within this class only, but it is possible inside the method which is part of the class. So if I try to use let my method let, it is possible. So if I try to declare a variable using var keyword my method var, this is possible. My method var. This is not possible if we want to declare a variable if we want to declare a class level variable. That is not possible. Class level variables can declare only using this. But this let var const can be used outside the class or within the method which is part of this class. So I'll declare one constant here. This is my method const. Let me correct it. So to print that, I will just console.log my method let. Simple. So we can declare let var and const inside this method, and to see this in action, what we need to do is we have a method, LWC specific method. It's called connected callback, and it calls itself when the page loads. We'll talk more about this in detail in the coming sessions, but for the time being I will just mention connected callbacks calls when the page inserts into the DOM. But don't worry, we'll talk about in detail in the coming sessions. So if we want to call anything, any variable of our class or any method which belongs to the class, we cannot call it like this, like cannot call like this. This is incorrect syntax to call methods of a class. Usually we declare a method like this, and we should call it like this, but it doesn't work like that. To call any method, first what we have to do is we need to use this keyword and then dot and then my method. So if I try to call my method like this, then the compiler will look a method with this name outside the class. It could be at the top of the class or it could be at the bottom of the class. But we want to call this method, not any method which is declared outside the class. We want to call a method which is within the class. So if we want to call a method which is declared inside the class, we have to use this keyword. There is no exception. We cannot call it like this. So this is the way we call the methods in LWC class. So if we want to print this class level variable, class level property, so we have to call it like this. Now we cannot call it without this keyword. This would throw an error that there is no such variable. So if we want to print, if we want our compiler to read this variable, so we have to use this dot. So let me try it, mention it in the comments, so you don't have to make extra notes. So I'll just remove this. Let me comment it out. Cannot read class level variables without this keyword. So this is the instance of this class. This means it belongs to this class. So this is how we call class level properties or variables or class level methods. Now this is all about the declaration of the variables. We can declare using let var const within the method or outside the class, or we can declare class level variables just giving the name and then the values. But there is one more thing. The fun part to declare the class level variable is we can declare it here at the class level that we usually do in other languages. But in JavaScript, I could do like this also. Like I can call it, use this, and I just declare a variable. I would say another my another class level variable. I'm declared within the method. So now even though I declared this variable here in this method, but I use this keyword. So using of this keyword is this property doesn't belong to this method only, it belongs to this class. It is declared at the class level because I have declared using this keyword. Simple, right? So if you have any confusion, so don't worry about that. You can mention your confusion or question in the comment section and I will respond to that. Now let's talk a little about the scope of the variables. Usually the scope lies within the curly braces. So scope of this let var const is throughout this file because they are declared at the top. So that's why I have given a value. This is a global let var and const. So these can be accessed or compiler can read this anywhere within the file. So these class variables, the scope of these variables lies within these curly braces. It cannot be accessed outside the class directly. And regarding this let var and const, these cannot be accessed outside these curly braces. So if I try to print let here or my var here or const here in this connected callback, it would throw an error because the scope of these three variables within these curly braces. Easy, right? So now let's talk about this one. Here I am not using let var or const to declare it. I am using this keyword, and even though I have not declared anywhere at the class level, but it belongs to this class, not belongs to this method. So the scope of this property or this variable is not within these curly braces, but within these curly braces. Now let's see this in action. So if I try to console log it here, it should not throw me any error because this property belongs to the class. It doesn't belong to this method. Now if I have created this Aura application, and if I click on the update preview, now you see we have my class variable logged here first. First this got printed. First it logged this console log, and then my method let, my method var, and my method const, and after that this variable. I can access this variable outside this method because, as I have already explained, this belongs to these curly braces, not these curly braces. But this let var and const, they belong to these curly braces. So if I copy this let outside this class and try to deploy it, now if I reload the page, it should throw me an error. My method let is not defined because the scope of this variable is within these curly braces, and compiler can read these variable within these curly braces. It cannot be read outside these curly braces. So this is not possible, but this is possible because even though we have not declared this variable like this, but still when we use this name of the variable, it got declared at the class level. This is the charm of JavaScript. Anyway, so if now I save it, and here let's talk about the difference between let and var. There is a concept in JavaScript named as hoisting. So in hoisting, first compiler moves these variables declared using var keyword. First they goes into the memory. Rest of the things is line by line. Like compiler reads the code line by line, but before it goes line by line, it just move the initialization of this way. Only the initialization first goes to the memory, and then after that it is line by line, unlike any other language. So now if I cut the console log here for let and try to print it first here, so technically it should throw error because we are first reading it and then we have declared it. And here if I reload it, it should throw an error, and it throws us error that we are trying to use it even before the initialization. So now let's move it back to its position. Now let's do the same with the constant. The concept of hoisting only applies with the var keyword. It doesn't apply to let and const. So if we try to read const or let before its initialization, it will throw the error. We have saw that, so we'll just move it back to its real position. Now let's try to do the same with var. Now this will not give us any error, but here it would print as undefined because only the initialization phase will go into the memory first, but the assignation is happening at line number 30. So if I try to print this, it should print undefined, and these two will go as usual. Let me save this and deploy this. Okay, so now if I reload the page, we should not see any error. You see, this is undefined because the assignation is going line by line, but the initialization of this variable is first goes into the memory and then it's line by line. So if you find this confusing, you can always mention in the comments, don't worry about that. So I won't go that deep into JavaScript, but so I just highlighted this is happening because of the concept of hoisting in JavaScript. There is a method level hoisting and there is a variable level hoisting. So this is how the variable hoisting in JavaScript. So it can be used first and then initialize after that. This is completely legitimate. So this is like how we use let, var, and constant in JavaScript, and how we declare a class level variable also. So right now, like we have tried to access let and var and const here in this method. In a different method it won't work, so I just tried with const, but I just tried with let, but this is the same for var and the const. But using declaring variable using this way, it belongs to the class level. So if you have any questions or confusion related to the scope of the variables and what are the different ways of variable declaration and what is the difference between all of them, just do let me know. So stay tuned for the next sessions. Thank you so much.